Today I was asked, what is the purpose of human relationships? Why even have relationships? Why do they matter so much to us? Why do they drive us crazy sometimes? Why do we get so upset over losing and gaining connections? There's so many questions there to ask. But I think it's useful and it's helpful to think of it from two different angles. The first one would be more what I would say from the bottom up, or from the foundation of our particular material nature, and thinking about why relationships have become a thing. And the other is what I would call the top down, more of our conscious dimension of ourself, our self awareness and such. So, obviously, anybody who is in any way educated in evolution and biology and those things knows that there's just general survival benefits to community. That certain species develop community habits, and that though being a community like an ant colony gives you a certain kind of strength. Having the ability to cooperate, fitting into a group, it's a strategy for survival. It's a strategy for perpetuating your genes, and so on and so forth. And that having relationships, having connections, is a natural evolutionary process. And I think that's interesting. I think it's good to see that there's a very compulsive nature to our desire to have a human connection. We almost can't help it. Sexuality is one of the big elements of that. We almost, a lot of us can't even help it. We can't help but think about it. That kind of thing. But I think that is only one part of the story. I think the other side of the story, to me, is far more interesting. And it's when I'm looking at where is all of this going? What is the end result of this evolutionary process? Where are we headed? And what are we? And if you look at the process of life, you see that things are getting more complicated, more sophisticated, more organized. And whenever you have relationships, you have the ability to build something that's bigger than just the individual. It's that whole idea that, the sum of the parts is greater than any individual. I think that's the quote. I don't remember exactly. But it's the idea that when things come together, there's something bigger there. There's a verse in the Bible that always stuck with me, and it was the idea that wherever two or three are gathered together in my name, I am there with them. And that's, I'm not a Bible believing Christian, but I am a spiritual person. And I do believe that when people get together and they agree on something, when they connect on something and they have a certain goal or drive, they have a conscious experience of being a part of something that's bigger than just them. Like when you go to a concert, there is an energy in the air. There is something that you feel beyond just yourself. And so I think looking at the top down level, I honestly have had many experiences where, in having human connection and having relationships and being involved as a group, I experienced being a part of something more than myself. I experienced myself being a part of the human organism. And from what I see in life, life is recognizing itself, and it's connecting to itself, and it's becoming something more, similar to how all of your organs in your body have a certain function. All of the cells in some way in your body are an individual. They are their own separate thing. And in some ways they can't exist without everything else. But they are their own isolated, they have their own membrane as a cell, for example. And we as humans, we have our own bodies. But there's something we're doing. There's something that when you kind of go out into space and you look at it, there's something that's happening here, something that we're accumulating to. And it's easy to paint a negative or pessimistic picture about that. But it's a learning process, and whenever you're on the cusp of that learning process, there's going to be a lot of challenges, difficulties, mistakes, and struggle. But I think we, in our lifetime, in the next, 50 to 100 years, we're going to see a lot of transformation in how we connect and in how we um, are not just an individual, but we experience ourselves as a collective. And so I think the purpose of human relationships is, in some way, a very compulsive thing that's purely for survival. But I think the other element of is it is a conscious exploration of what it means to be something more than yourself. And I believe that it is the universe becoming aware of itself in a way that will be even more fantastic, more interesting in the years to come than just being an individual. And it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a wild ride. I don't know if it's always going to be fun. I think there might be some challenges. But I think the end result is what the universe is doing, is what's culminating and coming together. There is also another kind of passage in the Bible that talks about the church being the body of Christ, right? And who is God? Who is Jesus? He was this enlightened being, right? He was the Son of God. He was, all kinds of stuff. And he told all of his disciples that they could experience a unity with God that he had. And I think that that's partially what human relationships is about. It's about connecting in such a way that we experience something greater than ourselves, and we start to connect to the reality of what's really happening here and what's orchestrating and governing things, and realizing that we, in many ways, are the thing that's orchestrating and governing things. We're just on the tip of the iceberg. Most of it is handled by the compulsive and habitual qualities of nature and physics and those things. But being at the kind of tip of that iceberg, we are experiencing consciousness. And when we come together and we connect for a common goal and common purpose, and we act like a body, like a group of individuals that are all doing one function and having one work, there's something that is mystical and spiritual and divine about that. And so that, I think, is ultimately the destination of human connection. That is ultimately the result of human relationships, is learning and growing and finding that we are something more than just an individual. We're not just I and you, we're we. And we are going to do some pretty crazy stuff. It's going to be a wild ride. And I'm excited. So thank you for the question. And I look forward to sharing more of my thoughts because I like talking. And I hope you find my thoughts interesting.